My husband left me a locked storage unit I was never allowed to open. 3 days after his funeral, his brother showed up at my door with a real estate agent. I want you to sit with that for a second. My husband had been in the ground for 72 hours. I hadn't even returned half the casserole dishes people brought over. And my brother-in-law, Derek, was already standing on my porch in a button-down shirt, smiling like he was about to do me the biggest favor of his life. "Sloane," he said, spreading his arms like he was about to hug me, "we need to talk about the unit." I didn't let him hug me. I held the door halfway closed and looked at the man standing behind him, mid-40s, khaki pants, a laminated badge clipped to his jacket pocket. "Who is that?" I asked. "His name's Paul. He specializes in estate liquidations. I thought we could get ahead of things before probate gets complicated." I closed the door. I stood in my hallway for a long time after that, back against the wood, listening to Derek knock 3 more times before he finally left. Then I walked to the kitchen, sat down at the table where my husband used to drink his coffee every morning, and I tried to remember the last conversation we'd had about the storage unit. His name was Marcus. Marcus Webb. He was 38 years old, a structural engineer who took meticulous care of his tools, his truck, and his records. We had been married for 6 years. I thought I knew him completely. Not perfectly, nobody knows anyone perfectly, but completely. The way you know the layout of a house you've lived in for years. You don't think about where the light switches are, you just know. The storage unit was the one room I had never been allowed into. It came up early in our relationship, before we were even engaged. He mentioned it casually, Unit 14 at a facility about 20 minutes from our house, where he kept work stuff. Engineering documents, old project files, equipment he didn't use anymore but couldn't bring himself to throw away. I had no reason to question it. He paid the monthly fee from his personal account, which was fine because we kept some finances separate. He went there maybe 4 or 5 times a year, always alone, always for an hour or two, always came home the same way he left, calm, quiet, normal. One time, early on, I asked if I could come with him. He had mentioned something about an old drafting table that might work in my home office, and I wanted to see it. He said no. Not unkindly, he said. "That place is kind of my thing, you know? Like how you have your studio." I had a small room where I painted watercolors, nothing serious, just something that was mine. He never came in without asking, so I understood. I let it go. I let it go for 6 years. And then, 4 months ago, Marcus had a stroke in the parking lot of a hardware store. He was gone before the ambulance arrived. The will was read 2 weeks after the funeral. Our house, our joint accounts, his retirement fund, all of it was clear, all of it went to me. And then the attorney, a quiet woman named Patricia, looked up from her papers and said, "There's also the matter of storage unit 14 at Secure Space on Millbrook Road. The contents are left solely to your discretion, Sloane." He was specific about that. He said, and she looked back down at the paper, he said you'd know what to do when you were ready. I didn't know what to do. I didn't feel ready. But I also didn't feel like letting Derek make that decision for me. Derek was Marcus's older brother by 4 years. They had grown up close, or so Marcus told me, but by the time I came into the picture there was something careful about the way they interacted. Polite. A little formal. Marcus never said anything explicitly negative about Derek, but he also never called him just to talk. Visits were planned in advance. Conversations had a kind of managed quality, like Marcus was always aware of exactly how much he was sharing. I had always chalked it up to their family dynamic. Some brothers are just like that. After Derek left my porch that first time, he called me twice the following day. I didn't answer. He texted, "Sloane, I know you're grieving. I am too. But Marcus would have wanted us to handle this practically. The unit is costing money every month. Let me help." His number was the one Marcus had listed as emergency contact before he met me. They used to be closer. That part was probably true. But Marcus had also named me sole executor of his estate, not Derek, me. I called Patricia. "Can Derek access the unit?" I asked. "Not without your authorization," she said. "You're the executor. The facility has been notified. And the contents, there's no inventory?" "Not in what Marcus filed. He simply designated the unit to your discretion." I hung up and sat with that for a while. To your discretion, he could have listed the contents. He could have given me a key years ago, explained everything, walked me through it. He didn't, and that meant one of 2 things. Either there was nothing worth hiding and he simply valued that private space the way I valued my painting room, Or there was something in there he didn't know how to show me while he was alive. I needed to find out which one. I went on a Tuesday morning, early, when the facility opened at 7. I had the key from his personal lockbox at home, a small brass key on a plain ring, labeled in his handwriting, 14. I had walked past that lockbox 100 times without thinking twice about it. The facility was one of those climate-controlled places, clean and fluorescent lit, rows of identical orange doors. I had the access code from Patricia. The woman at the front desk confirmed my name, handed me a clipboard, and pointed me down the second corridor on the left. Unit 14 was at the end of the row. I put the key in and turned it, and the latch released with a soft click, and I pulled the door up. I don't know what I expected. A drafting table, maybe. Filing boxes. Old equipment cases. What I found was a room that looked like someone had been quietly, carefully, building something for years. The back wall was shelving floor to ceiling, built in, the kind Marcus used to design for other people's homes. Every shelf was labeled in his handwriting. I recognized his system immediately. Category, date, subcategory. The same way he organized our garage. The same way he organized everything. The labels said things like, Medical Mom, 2019, 2021, Legal Derek, 2018, Financial Joint, 2020 present, House Documentation, Original Surveys. There was a folding table in the center of the room with a laptop on it, closed, and a power strip running to an extension cord coiled neatly along the baseboard. On the table, next to the laptop, there was an envelope with my name on it. Just Sloane. In his handwriting. My hands were shaking when I picked it up. I stood there in the middle of the storage unit, under the fluorescent lights, and I opened my husband's letter. It was 4 pages, handwritten, dated 8 months before he died, which meant he had written it when he was perfectly healthy, as far as either of us knew. Routine checkups, no symptoms, nothing. He had written it anyway. He started by saying he was sorry for the secrecy. He said he knew it probably felt strange, maybe hurtful, to be standing in this room for the first time without him. He said he had thought about showing me many times. He wrote, I kept telling myself I'd explain it when the time was right. I think I was also afraid of how it would change things between us. I didn't want you to carry what I was carrying. Then he explained what he had been carrying. It started with his mother. She had passed 3 years into our marriage. I knew this, I was at the funeral. What I didn't know was that in her final months, she had told Marcus something about Derek. She had discovered, while reviewing her own financial documents, that Derek had been forging her signature on loan documents for years. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. He had borrowed against her home equity without her knowledge and had not paid any of it back. When she confronted him, he convinced her it was a misunderstanding, promised to fix it, and she, not wanting to create a family fracture, had let it go. But she told Marcus. She told him because she wanted someone to know. She wanted a record. Marcus spent the next 2 years quietly documenting everything. He did it the way he did everything, systematically, without drama. He gathered bank records, cross-referenced loan documents, built a paper trail. Not to use as a weapon, he wrote that explicitly. He wrote, I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I told myself I was protecting you. If Derek ever came after anything that was ours, I'd have what I needed. I didn't want to blow up the family unless I had to. He never had to. While Marcus was alive, Derek kept his distance from our finances. Marcus watched carefully, and Derek never crossed that line. But now Marcus was gone, and Derek had shown up on my porch 3 days later with a real estate agent who specialized in estate liquidations. I sat down on the concrete floor of Unit 14 and I read the rest of the letter. Marcus had left everything organized. The laptop contained scanned copies of every document. The loan records, the forged signatures, the correspondence he had found, a summary memo he had written himself laying out the timeline clearly and simply. He had also left contact information for an attorney he trusted, a woman named Gail Mercer who specialized in estate fraud. He wrote, If you're reading this and Derek is making things difficult, call Gail first. Don't talk to him without a lawyer. The last paragraph was not about Derek at all. He wrote, I know this room probably looked like a secret. I want you to know it was the opposite. Everything in here exists because of you. Because I wanted to make sure that if something happened to me, you would be okay, you would have what you needed. You wouldn't be left exposed. He wrote, I should have shown you sooner. I'm sorry I didn't trust us enough to do that. You deserve to know. I love you. I'm glad you found it. I stayed in that storage unit for 2 hours. When I came out, I sat in my car in the parking lot and called my best friend Dana. She stayed on the phone with me while I cried. Then, when I was done, she said, "Okay, what do you need to do first?" "Call the attorney," I said. "Then call her." I called Gail Mercer that afternoon. She had already heard from Patricia Marcus, had apparently given Gail a heads up years ago, a brief conversation where he outlined the situation and asked her to be available if his wife ever called. Gail did not seem surprised by anything I told her. She said, "Let's start with a full review of the documents. Can you bring the laptop in?" I brought it in the next morning. What followed over the next 6 weeks was not dramatic in the way people imagine legal situations to be dramatic. It was quiet and methodical and paper-heavy. Gail reviewed the documents Marcus had compiled and brought in a forensic accountant to verify the loan records. They were legitimate. The forgeries were documented clearly enough that the accountant called them textbook. Derek had been doing this for years, and he had been counting on the fact that no one in the family was looking closely enough to catch it. He had not counted on Marcus. During those 6 weeks, Derek called me 7 times. I did not answer once. He texted. He emailed. He showed up at the house again, this time alone, and stood on the porch for 10 minutes before leaving. He sent a message through Marcus's cousin, someone I hadn't spoken to in years, asking if we could clear the air. I forwarded every communication to Gail. The week before Gail filed the civil complaint, she called me and said, "I want to prepare you. This is going to be uncomfortable for the family. There will probably be people who think you should have handled this privately." "Were they going to protect me privately?" I asked. She paused. "No," she said. "I don't think they were." "Then we file." We filed. I'm not going to walk through every detail of the legal process because frankly most of it was waiting. Waiting for responses, waiting for depositions, waiting for Derek's attorney to stop sending delay motions. What I will tell you is that 8 months after I opened Unit 14, Derek settled. He did not admit wrongdoing in the settlement, his attorney made sure of that, but he paid back every dollar that had been taken from his mother's estate, with interest, plus the legal costs. The money went into a fund Marcus's mother had originally intended for family medical expenses. I set up a trustee, Patricia, the estate attorney, and left it there. It wasn't my money to keep. It never was. What I kept was the letter. I've read it probably 30 times since that morning in the parking lot. There are parts that still make me angry, not at Marcus, but at the situation. At the years he spent managing this alone. At the fact that he thought he needed to protect me from it instead of just showing me. At the version of himself that didn't trust us enough, as he put it, to share the weight. But I also understand it, in the way you understand something complicated about someone you loved. He was trying to take care of me. He did take care of me. Just not in the way I would have wanted, or in the way he would have wanted if he'd had more time to think it through. Here's what I know now that I didn't know before I opened that door. That room was not a secret Marcus was keeping from me. It was a room he built for me. Every folder, every labeled shelf, every scanned document, it was all organized so that I would be able to understand it quickly, alone, without him there to explain. He built it like a structure, because he was a structural engineer, and that was how he showed love. If you're going through something like this, if someone you trusted left you something confusing, something that felt like a closed door, I want to say this carefully. The closed door is not always what it looks like. Sometimes the people who love us most are carrying things they don't know how to hand over while they're standing right in front of us. Marcus should have shown me. I wish he had. I wish we had sat in that room together, on a Tuesday morning, and he had walked me through every shelf and I had told him he didn't have to do it alone. But he did what he could with what he knew how to do, and when he couldn't be there anymore, the room he built told me everything. Derek and I have not spoken since the settlement. I don't expect we will. There are people in the family who think I was too aggressive, who think it should have stayed private. I understand that perspective. I don't share it. The storage unit is empty now. I cleared it out in a single afternoon, moved everything that needed to be kept to our house, and let the lease go. It took me longer to cancel the monthly payment than it did to empty the shelves, because Marcus had auto-paid from an account I didn't immediately have access to. Before I closed the unit for the last time, I stood in the empty room for a minute. Fluorescent lights, bare concrete, that faint smell of cool, dry air. 6 years of wondering. Standing there finally knowing. I said, out loud to nobody, I know what to do. Then I pulled the door down, turned in the key, and drove home.